What's up, family? Welcome to the Rise Urban Nation, where we unite, uplift, and ignite conversations that help leaders, entrepreneurs navigate real life and real change. Today's episode is for anyone who's felt the weight of uncertainty, in this today's economy, like layoffs, restructuring, economic shifts, and wondering how do we lead people through this without losing ourselves? Our guest today is Jessica Smith, is a globally recognized HR executive and chief people officer with a background in finance. And I'm gonna have to ask her a little bit more about that, how somebody goes from finance to HR. But we'll table that. And advanced studies in AI and a passion for building cultures that deliver results and protect humanity. She's bilingual and a published thought leader on everyday leadership and brings a rare lens that connects performance, psychology, and purpose. Jessica, welcome to Rise Every Nation.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
The first thing I got to ask you is about this finance to people thing, people strategy. How in the world does somebody who comes from the world of numbers then go into people strategy? Well, like, how did that happen?
Yes. Well, the short answer is a financial crisis.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I started my career in finance. I went to Hampton University, the real HU for any of those that were in Dallas.
Listen, I'm from
And
DC, so I know some people down in DC would beg to differ. I can hear them right now in my ear saying, "H, you know."
exactly. So that's why I had to just make it clear from the beginning. Um, so I graduated from HU Hampton with a degree in finance. And I started my career in finance, in our finance rotational program. Decided pretty quickly, which was actually designed to create the next CFOs. And I was with Johnson Johnson at the time. And then ended up really wanting to do banking, transition into banking. And then basically after on my first day, the weekend before, Lehman Brothers um, crashed. And essentially my career in banking started the day the stock market started to crash in the financial crisis back in 2008.
Mm.
So I actually did work the markets for those next couple of years, but after doing that for a couple of years, and I was in wealth management, I decided that I wanted to make a different kind of impact. That was my
Mhm.
job, really focused on keeping my clients in the bank extremely wealthy,
Mhm.
and I wanted to make a different kind of impact. And so I ended up just taking a sabbatical. The bank said, "You'll be back. Just take a sabbatical." And I was in London at the time, and I did that. I went to Barcelona and I fell into recruiting. And I just, after giving somebody their first offer, I was actually at that time, my area was focused on Southeast Asia.
Mm.
And so giving someone an offer in Southeast Asia to be able to work in Europe, it was just for them, like life changing, as it
Yeah.
would have been for many people. So I thought this is the kind of impact that I want to be making with my day job. And
Yeah.
so here I am.
I love that. I love that. It's a very unique story. I'm curious. Does your financing background kind of change the way that you kind of approach HR and impact outcomes? Because I don't know too many HR professionals with the type of background that you have.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So I'm so thankful for that background in finance because definitely I see things through a different lens. I mean, very strong business acumen. You know, we work for businesses, right? And they run on profit and loss statements and balance sheets. And so understanding how money is made and what that looks like and where things go, what's top of line and bottom, that helps a lot in how I help the business make decisions. And then also gives me a very analytical type of view. And so I've been able to use that as well to really expand my career.
Nah, I'm curious. When did you? Because it sounds like you're saying like people's strategy is like a business strategy, and there's a framework it seems like that you have for how you do that. When did you realize people's strategy is business strategy, and how do you help like C-suite executives understand that?
Yeah, so it really, I would say I started in my career in tech. So I was at Amazon for about 5 years, and my first role was actually they hired me to solve for how do we recruit executives at scale, and the answer ended up being using data. And then I from there ended up standing up Amazon's first talent intelligence practice within in that group and get into product and program. And then I started to understand that, wow, actually, how we think about recruiting external talent, actually, we can put that same kind of frameworks into how we think about moving internal talent around in a way that's more proactive,
Mm.
using data analytics as well. And the movement of people, I mean, Amazon, like any with any company, right? They can't function. At that point, I was in Amazon.com, and so you can't run that site without people, right? You still need, no matter how many robots you have, and there's a lot of technology behind there, you still need people in order to be able to hit those goals. And so, for me, that's really where I connected all the dots, and really think anybody on any team that's been on my team would say probably data obsessed.
Yeah, I love that. I love the intersectionality of data and using that to inform decisions is really around people. And that intersection really matters. And then I'm thinking about what we're going to talk about today, especially when times get tough, because when you're looking at how to best utilize your talent and you using a little bit of that data and then also what's going on within the organization, you could kind of find some diamonds in the rough and see where you can kind of move people into strategic positions in those tough times, and that reveals the leadership too of certain
Mm-hmm.
folks on how you can still stay lean, but be most effective and efficient, right? To meet the business goals during those
Yep.
tough times. Let's transition into like the human cost of uncertainty, because that's I think what's on a lot of hearts and minds of people right now. We see economic volatility. We see volatility in the stock market nowadays. Last year was the tariffs. Then it's it goes from tariffs to what's going on in policy and so forth. So everybody's just on this emotional roller coaster right now.
Yeah.
The jobs report is delayed. Let's talk about all of this, the psychological impact of, we know, I believe the last report I saw, people, there's a there's, the job market is not what it used to be. The companies are downsizing. People are holding on to jobs a little bit more longer right now because of the uncertainty in the job market and the
Mm-hmm.
psychological impact of job losses and economic certainty. What are, what are employees really experiencing, especially those who remain after the transformation?
Yeah, so a couple of things, right? When we've got impacts at work, on the workforce, when especially if we're reducing or reorganizing, really a lot of people are impacted, right? So not just the people that are exiting are impacted, but of the colleagues that stay behind as well, because it also can create a tremor for those colleagues, especially if you've got someone who has been impacted and is exiting, and you were really close to them, right? Or you worked really closely and they shared part of your, even from a workload perspective.
Mm,
And so people really have the impact on the people that are exiting and the ones that are staying. And so for the people that are staying, what you tend to see is that there's a lot of uncertainty
mm,
after a type of impact of that nature. And so the most important thing is rebuilding trust with people. And then also trying to help. You can't control the emotions of anyone.
mhm,
And that's, of course, at work and in any part of our lives. And so trying to, uh, the best thing to do in those situations is to use yourself an example and stabilize, use stability in the way you lead and being predictable to then help people find some type of comfort in the
yeah,
ambiguity.
yeah. I'm thinking, even after going through all that, there's a lot of emotions that show up after layoffs or
Hmm.
restructuring. One term that I saw, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, that uh, came to my awareness most recently is survivor's guilt. And somebody was talking about how this often goes unspoken. Are you familiar with the term survivor's guilt? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So talk to me. What
Mhm.
for people who maybe not know what is survivor's guilt, and what is the damage that causes, especially if it goes unspoken.
Yeah, so for me, in this context, survival guilt would be about how people that are not asked to exit the organization are feeling about being left behind. And you can even hear it, right? Because some people might say, oh, I wish they took me. I hate they took that person. And sometimes that can be because we know each other's personal situations, right? So maybe someone has a lot of empathy for another colleague because of their personal situation, right? They may have a personal situation that they know that this type of exit is going to be really painful for them,
Mm,
and so it can really make that colleague feel like, oh, why couldn't it be me?
mm,
But this is where my I say finance brain comes in, because most times, right, these scenarios, these situations, they're not personal. They
mm,
impact us personally, but they're not personal, right? They are a lot of times down to the economics of the organization, and that doesn't make it better or make the people staying feel worse, or any better. But I think where one needs to look for peace, whether that
mhm,
be the person that survived, let's say, is that like you don't have any control, right? Like the
mhm,
control sits somewhere else, and that it's economics,
yeah.
but at the same time you don't control it. And so the best thing we can do is then take that energy and
Mhm,
divert it to helping other people out that we can, right? By
yeah.
sharing your networks, when you see opportunities, forwarding opportunities to them, and then just helping support them emotionally, right? But with the right balance, because you have to continue to work there. So you
Yeah.
don't also want to take in too much information that's overly toxic, because you still work there, right? And you might actually enjoy the role. So it does need to be balanced, right? Because it's going to be an emotional time for everyone.
Yeah. I think sometimes that fear kind of, gets us into, the back survival part of our brain. And sometimes it takes
Mhm.
over and we forgo sometimes the logic piece. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's an imbalance between the fear and logic and they kind of get tangled up in the uncertainty of the decisions that we're making or how we're responding to those decisions. So definitely love that you gave, some clear, concise strategies on and that could really be put into place just to kind of acknowledge it. Say, hey, yeah, let's send these resources to them. But at the same time, let's look at we still have, these outcomes and these duties that we need to adhere to, and we can have a healthy balance of both. We can do tough things. We can walk and chew gum.
Yeah. 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 Two things can be true. Two things
Two
can be
things to
true.
be true at once, and we can
You
do it.
know?
You know.
Yeah.
Now, I was on your LinkedIn, and then I saw you did a wonderful piece that I want you to talk about that Story Bridge 10K recovery.
Mm.
And there was a powerful lessons that you shared that you kind of learned in there. So you recently shared that in that reflection of yours that about recovering from a knee injury and slowly rebuilding towards that 10K. How does that experience mirror leadership through disruption?
Yeah. So much, right? When this was actually last January, was skiing, fell backwards. It's embarrassing to say because I thought I was
Did you at
really
least look cool
strong.
doing it? Like, was it a
I
cool
did look
story that you could
cool.
tell about it?
I did look cool. I looked cool. I was luckily, very official in my outfit,
Okay.
but just not as graceful on the skis. Fell backwards, but the skis stayed on, and I thought that. And like I'm a runner, I was like, my legs are strong. I can keep these skis in the air, but I couldn't. And like
Uh,
one over rotated, and I
oh
hurt my
no.
knee.
Oh no.
It was terrible. Yes,
Yeah.
right in advance of a run, a race. So yeah. So the journey was. I don't however many of you out there are runners, when you are a runner, you cannot run. It is really painful. And I use running for many reasons. I mean, definitely for physical health, but also for my mental health. I get a lot of peace, and a lot of release, and a lot of just helping to organize my own thoughts and processing of information while running. So to not be able to is really difficult. And so it does absolutely remind me of kind of the times that we're in, right? When you think about going through a transition, for me, the first thing I had to do is figure out, how do I replace this? I mean, imagine something that keeps your mental health, right? Your life is so important. How do I replace that? And that's essentially what we do in a transition as well, right? We look to figure out, we've had this disruption um, at work. Now we need to reorganize ourselves. We need to reset ourselves. The thing we were doing before, maybe we have to change the way that we do it, right? And in
Mhm.
my case, I substituted, while I was recovering, running for doing core strength. It's kind of like a mat Pilates, something I could do injured.
Mhm.
Um, and that's kind of what we have to do now, right? Like if I think about how AI impacts our work, we can't keep working in the same way. We have
Mhm.
to find new ways to do things. So that's definitely the first one. And then the second one is like within trying to keep going, right? I When I first started running again, of course, was terrified, and that's a really similar feeling, right? After you come through, or maybe a reorganization, or you had to reduce the workforce, we all feel scared. We don't know what's next. We don't know how it's going to pivot. And the only thing that we can do is take the best next step with the information that we have and keep going.
Mhm.
Um, and then finally is just doing the thing, right? So keeping taking that best next step. In my case, doing a thing was finishing that full 10K, but at work, that might be keep, keep going, right?
Yeah.
And figuring out, what is your next step? Is it a step, right? Is it more of a
Mhm.
pivot? How can you continue to upskill and take all the things that you're learning and then keep helping you be the next best version of yourself?
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about it. Actually, next Sunday, I now will run post that a half marathon here in Austin. So I'm very excited. So I have done a full recovery.
Yay.
So it is a good ending.
Yeah.
Hopefully that goes well.
And congratulations on the full recovery. I can't wait to see you get back out there. As somebody who used to run half marathons, I know that whole recovery process. I have retired from the process because I had knee issues too, but mine was not only just the knee injury, but it was the you know uh come to find out, my one side is longer than the other, so it's like an off step, and so like there's
Mm,
more impact coming on one side versus the other, which keeps re-aggravating the knee, especially when you're running those long distance. So I had to
yeah.
I had to let it go.
Let it go. Oh.
But I'm so excited for you that you keep it going. Um, and I want to rewind what you unpacked there, because it was a perfect analogy of just like talking about moving gently but moving forward, not only from what you learned of from the knee injury, but how that also relates to at work. Like sometimes using that same concept of moving gently but moving forward, right? Just taking
Mhm.
that next step, right, towards whatever we may not know what the long run looks like, but taking that next step, even if we have to do small steps and incremental steps to get back to where it is that we want or need to be. Um, I'm thinking the other thing I'm thinking about from hearing you talk is, when fear is, disguised as logic,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
how do how do leaders recognize it in themselves and teams?
Yeah, that's a great question. You really have to self assess. For me, the easiest way to do it is ask yourself questions, right? Because sometimes, too, I think we can let our thoughts and what we're thinking become our truth when thoughts and feelings are fleeting. And so you just have to ask yourself some questions. And so what I encourage leaders to do is take what you're thinking and ask it back. So, for example, if leaders are saying, oh, well, I'm scared all of it. Now we did this reduction. I'm scared my whole team will leave because they're nervous. Okay, why do you think they will leave? Why do you see that risk? Right. And well, it might be because, oh, their friends were impacted or they were friends with this person or, and then it's kind of circling back to, okay, but did they before this, like working here, like what can we do to then remind people why they're here in the first place? And so just asking questions and using a thought partner to do it is definitely key to talk it through because
Mhm.
definitely just because we think something, it doesn't mean that it's our reality.
Ah, I love that. Quick check in for our listeners. If you heard that, just because we thinking it doesn't make it a reality. So do a quick check in, get a thought partner, ask questions, have that, proverbial pause and think, when was the last time fear sounded reasonable and kept you from action? And get the thought partner to work through those questions. So
Yeah.
love that. All good nuggets.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, I have to say too, make sure it's the right thought partner, right?
ooh, you
Because
you
this is
speaking
where I
gems right
see
there. The right thought partner.
this is where I see people really get in a tangle is if you are asking someone to help you think that thinks exactly like you or that's not going to challenge what you say and think, they're probably not going to help you
Hmm.
get out of the thought spiral that you're in.
Yeah.
And so, and coaching a lot of different people, I've said, okay, who are you? Who's around you that you're talking to ask these questions? Oh, it's maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your best friend, maybe it's someone at work, and those could be right, but you need to check in and make sure are they right
Mhm.
because if it's kind of it's kind of like when you go to chat gpt is very agreeable,
Yeah.
right? So you put in there and you're like, hey, I did this, what do you think? Right? It's gonna be like, well, that was great, that made a lot of sense.
Right.
That's not helpful if you're actually trying to really understand the situation or trying to understand what another person could be thinking or what your team could be thinking. That's not useful. If you need someone that will actually challenge what you think or help you give you thought-provoking questions to then think
Hmm.
about it differently.
Yeah, because I think sometimes too many people, especially now, even with the social media algorithms, they're in their thought bubble, and so they're surrounded by
Mm-hmm.
people who are going to reaffirm their thoughts and their actions and stories. And we need to figure out, how do we build true community around us that allows for a diversity of thought and not just replicate and mesh all of the same thought and thought patterns to
Mm-hmm.
to to give us the wrong programming outputs.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble finding my words there, but the other thing that you mentioned, the Chat GPT thing. So I just learned recently that you have to tell Chat GPT not to agree with you so it doesn't be so agreeable. I saw it in a clip somewhere. I got to go back to it and learn. It's like, oh, I didn't know you can make Chat GPT do that. It's like, or else it's going to just be agreeable to all the ideas that you put in there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Well, and they just came out with a new version called Real Talk,
yeah,
and that one's supposed to be as well less agreeable
like,
and give you some true feedback. But again, I
like,
mean, obviously, the
we'll
people
see.
around you
We'll
as
we'll
well.
test this out. We'll see.
I will check in with the
We're gonna
people
check
around
in later. We're gonna test this out and see. Uh, so let's talk about
you.
what actually helps people recover. You've outlined some practical strategies for employees and leaders, but let's make it actionable. So, how should employees prioritize with leaders during time of uncertainty? What does that look like?
Yeah. So first, you need to make sure you're okay.
Hmm.
So step one would be your personal wellness. And so whatever that means to you, right? So it's going to be you're going to feel stressed and you're going to feel uncertainty. There's going to be a lot of ambiguity. And most of us don't like living in ambiguity and uncertainty. And so, how can then you be able to manage that ambiguity and that stress that's coming? It's really through making sure you are healthy as a
Hmm.
person. So, making sure you're doing your physical wellness, and then also taking care of yourself mentally because it's challenging, right? And
Yeah.
so that mentally it'll mean different things for different people. Like I said, for me, it's definitely running, but you'll need to find some way to find your inner peace,
Yeah.
which sounds cheesy, but really that's going to be the thing that really keeps you stabilized
Yeah, inner
throughout.
peace is very important. It's not just for the cartoons that you see on Disney when Master Shifu be in there and talk about inner peace on Kung Fu Panda. It is a real thing, people, and we
It's
need it.
real.
It's real, very real. Now, I
Mhm.
love that piece on the employee side. I'm gonna switch hats real quick. Go to the leader side of things. Like, so,
Yeah.
how do the leaders model stability while being honest about the change?
Yeah. So what's really important for leaders is that you model stability through consistency, right?
Mm,
So stability looks the same in our personal life or in our professional life. And so it's saying what you're going to do and doing what you're going to say. And then not making any promises that you can't keep.
mm,
And so, sometimes when there are reductions in force, as leaders, we want to be able to say, well, that's it, right? But if you don't know, you shouldn't say that,
yeah.
right? But at the same time, you need to help people stabilize. So you can say things that you won't say that specifically because you don't know the answer. And you can be honest about that. I think in these periods, the best things that we can do is be vulnerable, and create that psychological safety within teams so that people feel comfortable sharing their thoughts, even though there won't be a solution or an action for every
Hmm.
thought that you hear, but at least that people are comfortable sharing,
Yeah.
and that you're doing what you're going to say and say what you're going to do.
Yeah, and let's stay on the leader's hat a little bit because I want to dive deeper into that. You know, when you're a leader, you're often, having to sometimes navigate that and keep that stability and be consistent in the things that you do know, but try to navigate through the inconsistencies of things that you don't know. And sometimes there's a little bit of rebuilding in there as well, right? For a leader in this position, what does rebuilding meaning look like after disruption?
Yeah, really two things. Number one is helping the colleagues, the people in your team understand how their work is impactful. So,
Hmm.
on average, people want to make impact. So, that impact's not always something humanitarian, right? It could be whatever impact looks like for that person, but everybody wants to know that what they're doing has meaning and may impact. I mean, I think I changed my whole career because
Hmm.
the impact I was making wasn't the one that I wanted to make. And I changed countries, I moved around the world. I mean, all because the impact was not there. And so helping people understand, okay, how does your job relate to the business strategy? Where do you fit in? Like if the strategy is these five pillars, like which one are you touching, tackling, and influencing, is really important. Or it could be client based, right? So
Hmm.
how does your work impact the clients that we serve? And the goals we have for that, and how are you impacting and influencing that? So that's definitely number one.
Hmm.
And then number two is really engagement, right? Like we spend
Yeah.
a lot of time at work. People need to understand and be reminded sometimes of why they like working there. And so bringing people together helps a lot with that, creating community, wellness events, bringing people together to do wellness. A lot of times helps with that as well. And I know there'll be organizations that work remote or it's more challenging to bring people together
Hmm.
physically, but creating moments where people can just have like organized time,
Hmm.
organized downtime is really important so that people can reconnect
Yeah.
to the company and to the brand.
I would often say too, like community is the superpower for not only for just individuals but organizations as well. And community can help accelerate recovery when done well and done right. So
Yeah.
I love that you gave that example. I'm going to pivot back over to the employee side of things.
Yep.
I'm thinking about there's a conversation going on right now. There's a two sided of the coin, and what I'm leaning into is the AI conversation where AI is being heavily invested in by companies and corporations. And so when you think of the disruption, there's another piece of the conversation that's got employees nervous. Some of them are scared that AI is going to take their job, and then others are like, "Oh, AI is going to enhance my job." When we look at the changing and the strategies used around that, I see some employees looking at, okay, what's manageable now, really from the day to day, and let me lean into this AI and see what I can use from it to help me manage now that I may have more of a workload or my workload may shift, right? Or if we're going to integrate AI, I need to be on top of it to learn it. So from those perspectives, in your own personal opinion, how can AI help people work smarter without increasing pressure?
Yeah. So first, I would say, just in reference to, right, because there is a lot of talk around, is AI going to enhance my job or take my job? And I think the number one approach to finding effective ways to use AI as an employee, is to change the way you think about AI, right? So, number one, your job was never safe, right? So, like, that sounds really harsh, but unless you own the company, you don't have control over whether you are working there or not. So it was never safe, right? Now it's not actively at risk, right? Every single day, depending on what's going on in your organization. Maybe you're a great employee, you're a top performer, and so you didn't have any active risk. So you think, right? So we think, right? Because everything can happen, but it was never safe, right? So if you take that away from it and you think, okay, so actually my job was never safe. So really every single day I need to show up, do my best work, and find ways to do my job better. And
Hmm.
then you can start to think about how can AI enhance how you work. Because I use AI all the time.
Yeah.
And some ways I use it is to, I work in HR, so I lead HR. So sometimes I need to say something and I want to say it in how Jess would say it. But I need to put my Jess HR hat on. And so I might run that. I might say exactly what I want to say, put that into, your chat GPT or your co-pilot and say, can you please rephrase this? So it can help with some basic things, but then also too, also being again obsessed with numbers, it can also help analyze things as well.
Hmm.
And so if you are starting to think about, okay, how can this body work I'm doing my impact, to think about like how do you keep showing your value? A lot of times numbers will be present. So how can it help you to analyze some of the work that you're doing to show the impact that you're making? It can really help to also enhance your profile, or help
Mm.
you make those connections, right? We should all be networking constantly. And so, how, if you are not a natural networker, how can AI help you network more? That's going to make you even more successful in your work and your job. So, I think technically speaking, it can do some things to help us technically be faster. But then also, there is a non technical component to all of our work, which is
Yeah.
that networking piece, which is key. And so,
Yeah.
how can it help you to do that as well?
I love that. I love that. And then especially with the data component, because what used to probably take you, twice as much time could take you a fraction of the time if you're using AI right to take some of that
Yes.
the pressure off and the calculations of all that data um, analyzation. So yeah, I love that. Love that. All right, let's transition to leading beyond survival mode. A lot of our
Yeah.
listeners are Black and Pan African entrepreneurs and leaders, and many different spaces, many building under extra pressure. What lessons would you say matter most right now for them?
Yeah. I would go back to that kind of inner center, that because We are essentially where, there have been some big moments over the last, almost throughout history where you say, oh, we look back and we were like, oh my goodness, we were in a huge transition and a huge transformation of something, right? So if you think about like the car and when Ford started automating the way that they manufacture cars, that was a huge moment, right? That changed our whole society and how we work. And or when the internet, right, became more part of our everyday life, that was huge, right, and changed completely the way we work. And we're in one of those moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we see about those moments are they're not fast, right? So I mean, think we've been here tinkering with AI, and people have been building it, and we've been trying to figure out how to use it for actually several years. It's just the last year that we
Mm-hmm.
start to talk about it more. We're hearing about it more, but it's actually been around for a while. So the movement is not fast. And so we need to take care of ourselves. This is number one. So whatever that means to you to stay centered. And then two, the other thing we learn from history is that the movement will happen yes or yes, with or
Mm-hmm.
without us, right?
Yeah.
So you can or be a part of framing how it's going to look,
Mm-hmm.
or you can do nothing and it will happen to you. And so it's a really important moment for us to reinvest in ourselves and education. I myself, even I signed up for a course at MIT on AI, leadership through AI, how do
Okay.
we think, and other emerging technologies, because we have to make time right now to learn. Because if I'm not in the forefront and talking to my leaders about how we can think about changing and using AI, not just in HR, but across the business, then somebody's going to tell me how to do it, right, for me and my team. So we have two options. We need to stay centered and again, notice realize that it's not a fast race, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
more of a marathon than like a 10K. So take care of yourself, but then also to be part of the conversation around how it will change versus be changed to.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So, along with being a HU graduate, she about to be an MIT graduate here pretty soon. So she about to go around strutting two titles. But I appreciate the analogy there of how you segued between the running and the marathon and being prepared for that marathon. So, and setting that just those strategic stages up throughout the marathon. So good, um, way to bring it back into the running segment. I'm thinking, even as a runner and somebody who's competitive as you and um does so many active things, there's the workout and then there's the rest period, right? Which is rest is important because it helps
Yes.
with recovery, rebuilding the muscle.
Mhm.
And I'm also thinking nothing blooms year round. So how should leaders plan for a season of rest and growth?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great point. And a great question. It's funny you say that because just I took 3 weeks off over the holiday, and we were talking. I was in Spain, and I spent a lot of time. I'm doing this race, as I mentioned. I'm trying to figure out the last 3 months how to speed up because
Yeah.
I'm hitting a time that for me is too slow. So I'm in like 11-minute mile. One time I got 11 minute 15. I'm like, this is too slow.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna happen. So I've been spending months trying to figure out as I work and travel, like how to speed up, and I can't get faster. So then I go holiday. I just actually for 3 days did nothing. I just did nothing. I just rested. I didn't run. I did core workout, but I didn't actually run. So then day four comes and I finally go for it. And I thought, this is going to be really hard, right? Because I haven't run for a day. That's been sitting around, haven't done anything. And it was easier and I was way faster. So I ended up changing my time from the time I got there from 11 minutes 15 mile to 10 minutes 15. And
Mm.
the key was rest. So it just really is probably my next blog.
Nah.
That's the key. How do you speed up? You slow down
Mm-hmm.
and you rest, you recover, and then you go again. And actually, when you go again, you're probably going to go at a speed that you didn't think you actually could achieve.
Nah, there's a quote that I got from this lady who black lady who does the nap ministry, and she goes, "Rest is restorative and revolutionary."
Mm,
Mm. And I felt that to my soul because I think a lot of people don't realize how important the rest period is for
hmm
our growth, our recovery, to be able to help us move faster. We got so inundated in the grind culture and capitalism and so
Yeah.
forth that we kind of just focus on one step and forget the rest of the step. And even if you follow nature, life happens in seasons, right? There's a season where
Yes.
you're going
hmm
hard, really working, tilling the ground. And then there's that watering season, which is the growth season, and then there's that rest season where you're reaping the harvest, right? And you got to treat your body, your work, your evolution, and everything that's around you similarly. That's how you get the most productive and um, best version of you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I
Well,
love that quote.
well, so yeah, check out Nap Ministry if you haven't checked it out. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty cool, pretty dope what she's doing with the Nap Ministry. All right, I'm thinking for our listeners when you hear this, hopefully you're thinking about um, what would happen if you pushed past the logic of fear and choose to go anyway. What would happen if you decided to really include rest into your regiment and not always be on the grind? Just some of those are the things that really pointing out to our listeners out there and do that work and then go back listen to some of the nuggets that was given in the previous segments of the episode. I want to close by pointing people to your work and kind of what's next. So first, thank you for coming on the show, Jessica, and grounding us in leadership and empathy and clarity and rest and you might make me start running just for not to run 10Ks and all that stuff, but for I almost forgotten how it can help you clear the mind and think and all that stuff. I was like, oh, I was always running for the sport of it. I think in this new season of life, maybe I could pick it back up for the running for the just the mental health part of it. And I thank you for reintroducing that. But where can listeners really connect with you and continue this conversation? What do you have coming up? Um, tell them where to go. Tell them where to go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So definitely you can find me on LinkedIn, Jessica Smith. But I wrote a blog on there as well, which we talked about here today, called Leadership Lessons from Normal Life, where I just find things in our regular life and write some lessons on them. So you can check that out on LinkedIn. I also have an Instagram, which is leadership lessons underscore from underscore life, where you can follow. Where as I go, I travel a lot, really all around the world, and I'm always capturing different messages and lessons when I see them and just posting them on there. So definitely, you can follow me there on Instagram as well.
Yeah. And so y'all make sure y'all go follow Jessica on LinkedIn. I saw the blog's phenomenal. And then it sounds like she got another one coming up from what I just heard there.
You wrote
Yeah. Follow on
it.
Instagram if you're on Instagram. Share this episode with a leader, navigating change. Subscribe to below if you're on Apple Podcasts. Hit the rating button. Give us a rating, Spotify, wherever you're at, or YouTube. Subscribe, rate, like, review Rise Urban Nation. Next episode, we're back with another conversation on leadership, culture, and impact. Peace.